Welcome once again to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we hear directly from county leaders, discuss the latest news, and talk about all things concerning our beautiful corner of California known as Sonoma County.
Welcome to SoCo Chat. I'm your host, Matt Brown, Deputy Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma. Thank you for joining us. The county government is a vast organization made up of hardworking public servants dedicated to improving life for the residents of Sonoma County. With nearly 5,000 employees across 27 departments, the organization is the largest employer in the county. From roads to public health, law enforcement to recreation, elections to social services, the county government touches most residents' lives every day. Less than a month ago, the County of Sonoma hired a new leader. David Guhin started as county executive on April 20th, and he hasn't had time to slow down since. With nearly 2 decades of experience in local government in Sonoma County, including at the City of Santa Rosa and, most recently, as the city manager of the City of Sonoma, David joins us today to talk about leadership and his plans for tackling the challenges facing the County of Sonoma. David, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you're very busy, so thank you for joining us and taking the time here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you're pretty new to the county family, so let's just talk a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up and where'd you go to college?
Yeah, I grew up in Davis, not too far from here. Went through high school there, and then after high school, I moved over to South Dakota, of all places. So went to South Dakota School of Mines and Technology for engineering. Got my degree in civil engineering, which was a great experience. And spent most of my summers in Minneapolis, which was really great, working as a surveyor. And then after college, I moved out to Virginia, and kind of full circle. My first job out of college was with the county. So I was an entry-level engineer with the County of Stafford in Virginia near Quantico, and kind of moved from there on to private industry, and then finally into the City of Santa Rosa back here in California.
Okay, great. Well, I know you're not new to the County of Sonoma. You're new to the government here, but you've been in the county for a number of years working in local government. So tell me about how your experience working in local government here in Sonoma County. How did that prepare you to take on the role of county executive here?
Yeah, I've had a pretty fortunate career here in Sonoma. I've been here for about 24 years working in the county in a variety of formats. As you talked about in the intro, started with the City of Santa Rosa as a I guess it was an assistant civil engineer for the newly formed water department back in those days, and designing water and wastewater systems. And then kind of moved my way through the organization from assistant engineer to supervising engineer to overseeing the subregional treatment plant, the geysers system, the reclamation system, the treatment plant, and then ultimately the director of water. And then from there, moved over to the planning department, became the planning director, and then assistant city manager, and then eventually moved over to a very unique experience as the executive director of government operations for the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria, which was very enlightening and rewarding experience. Getting to know how tribal government works in a very intimate way, which was really, really impactful. And then from there, moved to the City of Sonoma as their city manager. And I think, all those jobs over the years in Sonoma County, I was fortunate enough to get to see a lot of the county, get to work with a lot of different employees around here, and I still see them today walking around the halls. A lot of different nonprofit organizations, other government agencies, just have been exposed to this county in so many different ways. So I feel like this job really is a culmination of all that. And it's very rewarding to be here in this position at this time, and having those connections and knowing that many people around this county and how things work has been really, really nice to see. And so I'm excited to be here to help where I can.
Yeah. And with all of your experience, I imagine you'll be working with other cities and tribal governments that you've worked with in the past. So that'll set you up pretty well for that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's something, those relationships we build over the years, and I'm working with people and just understanding how everything connects and how our community connects and what's important for our community. It's really, it's definitely feel proud to be here in Sonoma County, and I love this county, and to be in this role, in this chair at this time is very humbling.
Well, tell me about your leadership style. How would you describe it? And can you name someone that's had an influence on shaping you as a leader?
Leadership style, I guess. probably pick 3 words. I'd say calm, maybe connectedness, and empowerment. And I think, the role of my role in jobs I've had recently is really to bring people together. I don't know all the answers. I can't know all the answers, and especially in an organization like this, as complex as the county, the number of facets that the county has. I can't know the answers. I shouldn't know all the answers. And so bringing the right people together, I think my job is to create that environment where people can have those conversations and work together and work collaboratively. I think in terms of connectiveness, I'm as an engineer, my background, I'm a systems thinker, so I like to put the puzzle pieces together and figure out how everything fits and connect the dots and try to help play that role and identify things that might work well together. And so I think that's an important role to play as well. And then I think empowerment. I think my job is to make sure the staff, everybody that works here in the county has the support, the resources to do their jobs, because I think everyone's got a really important job here in different facets. And you mentioned all the different things the county does in the beginning of this, and that you need it all, right? It's not just one's not one more important than the other. And so my job is to make sure we can support them all and all our employees in a variety of ways. So kind of feel like that's my role as a leader, and that's the style I try to take and be accessible at the end of the day.
Yeah. Any influences on your leadership style?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if I can name one person, but I would say that having mentors throughout my career has been extremely impactful and really important. And that's one thing I would recommend to anybody out there that's working or moving through the organization is get mentors, and a lot of different mentors. And I've had many over my career, and I've found bits and pieces from every one of those in interactions and relationships I've had that I feel like I pulled together what I think is important today. So I think, it's always good to keep learning, get exposed to different people, different approaches, and there may be 1 or 2 things that person can bring to you, but it'll pay off in the long run. So I would highly recommend find mentors, find people, and work with them and learn from them.
Yeah. Great. The county government is vast organization. The geography we cover is vast. It's throughout the entire county. You mentioned you are trying to get up to speed and learn the things you need to know. What are your plans for the next few months to get out into the communities and talk to residents and find out what they need from their county government? Yeah,
that's a really good question. Right now I feel like I'm running from meeting to meeting here, but it's important to get out into the community. I know I'm going to be going out to different districts, touring different districts, and identifying, making sure I get to know the different groups and leadership in those districts, and people. I've already been invited to speak and attend different group meetings and community group meetings, nonprofit meetings, and so I'm going to make it a priority to get out there and just to make sure I interact and understand and listen. I know there's people that are getting on my calendar now to meet with, and I appreciate that. People reaching out and trying to figure out how to find time to meet with people. But as you said, I think getting out into the community, listening to people is the best way to do it. So right now I'm putting people on my calendar and trying to get out as much as I possibly can. And I know it's going to take a little time, but I definitely will get out there.
It must be nice to not be totally stuck in the office and get to see some of this, beautiful landscape that Sonoma County offers, and going out to the different parts of the county.
It truly is. Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable county, and I used to be a cyclist. I think I've ridden on every single road in this county at some point in my life, and there's the vast difference between the vineyards and the redwoods and the mountains and the ocean. It's just an incredible place to visit, and I'm glad I get to go around and explore that with this lens on, which is really, really impressive.
Yeah, that's great. So you've not been here that long. We mentioned your first day was April 20th. That actually happened to coincide with the first day of our budget workshops, where the Board of Supervisors heard from all the departments about the budget coming up. And let's be honest, there's some budget challenges coming up with the state and federal government budgets that were going to be impacting us here in Sonoma County. That must have been a very busy first day and first week for you. But what did you learn from those budget hearings, and how is the county planning to address the challenges that you heard from those hearings?
Yeah, and I have to say that I think when you're starting a new job, especially in this role, the best way to learn an organization is through its budget. So to have the first 4 days be 100% budget, have every department go through their budget, where their pinch points are, what the needs are, what the priorities are, and hear the board react to them and provide comment and feedback on where they feel what's important. I think it couldn't have been a better way to start, to be honest. And I think that was a really valuable way to see the organization as a whole over 4 days and to have that intimate look at each department, hear the conversations, hear from the board members. I think it was something that, hard to beat that on the first 4 days. So it was a lot, but I think it was well worth it. It definitely set us up for some tough conversations ahead. We definitely have some budget challenges that are stemming from the federal government coming down through the state to us. Those are things that are going to be very difficult to try to accomplish. But, I think we have our job over the next few months, or actually the next month, is really to turn around a budget and a recommendation to the board based on what they let us know is important, which we're well in the way of. I think one of the biggest challenges is the uncertainty that it's causing. And I think, that's difficult across the board. It's difficult for the residents, our community. It's difficult for planning purposes. It's difficult to try to provide some clear direction as we move forward over the next few months. Case in point, the state's budget may not be finalized with all the input until August, the fall time frame. And so we probably will have to come back to the board after we adopt a budget in June to have a future conversation about where do we actually land based on the state's budget and what's going on at the federal level to make sure that we're addressing the community's needs. So unfortunately, we have a lot of uncertainty at this moment. We have a lot of moving pieces, but our job is to do the best we can to keep things moving on track, make sure we identify what those most critical services are for our community, specifically around healthcare at this point, and food security. Is making sure that we do everything we can and be there for our community, despite the state, despite the federal government, but do that in a very thoughtful way. So that's what we're planning to bring in June to the board, get their feedback, hopefully get a budget adopted, and then we'll come back and revisit as we learn more.
And besides those fiscal challenges, what are some other challenges that the county's facing right now, and what are our opportunities?
Yeah, I think the big one I touched on before is just the uncertainty. I think fiscal, but also just in general about what's going on with a lot of different issues at the federal and state level. But I think, one of the opportunities that comes out of this is new relationships and different way of thinking and solving problems. And I think we've learned that we've all been through some big disasters here in Sonoma County, from fires to floods to pandemics, so I think, each one of those situations has forced us to rethink things and do things slightly different and come up with a new approach. In the relationship with our nonprofit community and the NGOs out there, that I think that's one of the great opportunities we have, is rethinking how that works. How do we all work together and provide support to our community? So I'm really excited about that and working with our community to solve those issues.
Yeah. One of your responsibilities as the leader of this organization is to provide office space for the workers that work here. I know there's a major capital project going on right now. It's in the planning stages to build a new modern county government center. It'll be right here, almost right here on this footprint where we're sitting today, a big 5-story office building, which will unite most of the departments under one roof. Tell us a little bit about this generational project, and how are you planning to keep this project moving forward?
Yeah, it's a big project. There's a lot of moving pieces. A lot of things have happened already. So there's a lot of movement on this prior to me arriving here. So first step is just to understand where we are with all the different moving pieces. And as you mentioned, it's a generational project. And I think it's one of those things that's very difficult to do anytime, especially when there's a budget issue, especially when there's a looming uncertainty coming from financially and specifically around healthcare, when we're talking about a building and office space. But that's up to us to figure out and how to communicate and how to bring forward to the board a project that makes sense, a project that is financially sound in the long run. So if we can show that over time, this is a savings to the county that would then be able to support these long-term solutions, such as healthcare and other things that we're going to have to fix. We can do both. I think we need to figure out how to develop that so that we can present that in a way that's palatable both to the board and the community, that it is the right decision. But we'll need to show the data and show how it works. It could probably be some combination of the building itself, people in other buildings off-site, so what that might look like. But at the end of the day, looking at the services we provide to the community, how are those aligned? How do people get those services? And then making sure that's sustainable in the long run. Because if we have buildings that fall down and fall apart, that's unfortunately becomes a very costly endeavor, and we have to face it one way or the other, and so we just have to do it in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question I wanted to ask. So the board in 2021 approved a 5-year strategic plan. The core areas of that were climate action and resiliency, healthy and safe communities, organizational excellence, racial justice and social equity, and resilient infrastructure. So that was a 5-year strategic plan, which actually expires this year. So as this plan expires, what are your thoughts on the next strategic plan, and are those pillars still the top priority?
Yeah, I think I heard a lot of these topics come up during the budget workshops, which again was a great to hear from the board on where their priorities are, things that are important to the board. We are coming into a election season, so come January we'll have 2 new board members. So I think it's an interesting time now to have that conversation about values, and again, values came up again during the budget workshops in terms of what does the county value, what's important to the county, where do we want to direct our limited resources, and how do we do that? As we go into next year, through this cloud of uncertainty, through the fall of this year, hopefully we'll have a little bit more certainty going into 2027. With 2 new members, it would be a great time to start that conversation and to sit down and talk about, are those still the priorities for the board? Are there any changes that need to be made or tweaks to them? But then also, what are the values that the county holds, and how do we want to shape what's important to the county as we move forward, and then use that as we go right back into the budget process again for next year. So I think the timing is right for that conversation to happen early in 2027.
Yeah. You foreshadowed my next question. Your bosses, the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors, by this time next year, as you mentioned, there will be 2 new members. Supervisor David Rabbit and James Gore are both not running for re-election. So tell me about that uncertainty about having this time, 8 months from now, there'll be 40% new membership on the Board of Supervisors. So now it's a little bit uncertain, as you mentioned. Tell me about that, working with a board now that won't be the same 8 months from now.
Well, I'd say that for the next 8 months, it's very certain, the board we have in place. And I know for sure the board members that are currently in place and those that are stepping down at the end of the year, they're 100% committed to the rest of the next 8 months. And I know there's a lot that needs to get done over the next 8 months. Looking at the agenda, the forecast agenda coming up, and the decisions and the issues and the that need to be made in the next 8 months, there's quite a few, and they're big decisions. And I know the 2 members that are not running for re-election are committed to going through the term, being part of those conversations, being part of those decisions. And so that to me is 100% commitment and certainty that we have for the next 8 months, which is really important for the continuity of the government here in the county. Going into next year, I think we'll have, again, like you said, two new members on the board. So we'll get new perspectives, new ideas. And again, that's maybe why it'd be a good time to rethink and look at those values, look at the strategic plan, and say, are there any things that we want to update or change? I'll still be fairly new at that point, so it's a good time to reconnect with the new structure in the spring of 2027, and go from there into the next process. But I am looking forward to these next 8 months, and there's a lot of institutional knowledge that we're going to lose here in the county from those 2 supervisors. And I want to do everything I possibly can to leverage that, learn from it, have them be part of the conversations over these next 8 months that are really critical to this county. So I'm looking forward to making the most of that over the next 8 months.
Well, I know you've been very busy, working long hours. It's starting a new job like this is like drinking from a fire hose with all the information thrown at you. But when you do have time to sit down and relax, what do you like to do to relax?
My wife, Marie, and I love to garden. So that is one of our happy places. So I spend a lot of time in the garden. Any chance I can get, like shovel compost or whatever I've got to do to get outside and play in the dirt. That's my favorite thing. And if you're ever in the county center and stop by my office, you'll see every Monday. Not to put pressure on my wife, but she's been making beautiful bouquets from our garden. I've brought in every Monday, so every Monday there's a new bouquet from our garden in the office. So you can come by and check it out. But we really enjoy it. It's just a fun thing to do, and it's going to get back into something with your hands and being outside, and so.
Probably loving this rain too, your garden, I'm sure.
Do love the rain. Yeah, love it every time it rains, and but looking forward to this season and just exploring the different type of flowers we can grow and different things we can bring, and hoping to bring more flowers and stuff to the office and share where appropriate where we can.
That's great. Well, David, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us on SoCo Chat. I hope you do come back here at some point and have another episode with you.
Great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and to as a thank you for being on the SoCo Chat, we'd love to offer you a SoCo Chat coffee mug. And to our listeners, if you have comments about this episode or a suggestion for a future SoCo Chat discussion, please shoot us an email at publicaffairs@sonomacounty.gov. Thank you all, and we hope you continue to follow SoCo Chat on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube. See you next time. Thanks again, David.
Thank you.